Welcome again to the Captain's Vlog podcast, episode 6 in the series, and this time it's the pros and cons of leg 8, the last leg of the Clipper Around the World's yacht race, which normally takes you from the east coast of the USA across the North Atlantic in early summer, and then to the finish port, sometimes via one or two other stops. In the 11-12 race, in which I was around the worlder, we left Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we crossed over the Grand Banks, sort of perfect storm territory, and Flemish Cap, and we sailed north, staying south of an ice gate. Obviously, the ice is coming down from up north, so we stayed south of an ice gate for safety, and then crossed the North Atlantic very quickly as it transpired, because we were riding on the coattails of a tropical revolving storm that had come up from the Caribbean. So that was a fantastic crossing. We flew across pretty much on a beam reach. Some of the boats ahead of us had a harder time of it, because I think they had wind forward of the beam for most of the way, so we did quite well there. A relatively short race, and in my experience on the 11-12, it was split into into 3 different races. So we crossed to Derry, Londonderry, and then from there we started again and went north around Scotland and down to the port of Den Helder, and then from Den Helder we had a short sort of 3-day sail back to Southampton, where we finished the round the world race. So one of the pros to leg 8 is that it may possibly be split into more than one race, and if that's the case, you get again more bites of the cherry. So you haven't just got all your marbles in one bag and hoping that that you don't have a problem and therefore it screws up your race result. So that's one advantage. Another advantage, you're crossing the North Atlantic in early summer, so whilst the North Atlantic is still the North Atlantic and is never wholly hospitable at those latitudes, it is a little bit warmer, but like you wouldn't go sailing in the Channel on a summer's day without all the kit, you shouldn't even consider about it in the North Atlantic. There is an ice gate, and for that reason alone it ought to give you some indication that it's not going to be hugely warm, and it might be pretty inclement weather. So North Atlantic is not the coldest and probably not the windiest of legs at that time of year, but it's still North Atlantic, Northern Hemisphere, early summer, so it's going to be a challenging ocean to cross. Relatively short race because it's a relatively small ocean comparison to the North Pacific or the Southern Ocean, so it's probably half the distance, and for that reason alone it's going to be less time at sea. Start port, well, it's going to be somewhere interesting on the eastern coast of North America, and it's probable, I would have thought in most cases, that to make the leg interesting and competitive, there's going to be more than one element to the leg, although of course that varies from race to race. The big advantage, I suppose, to leg 8 is, and it's the reason it's called one of the glory legs, leg 1 being the other one, is that of course you're triumphantly returning to the start port to finish the race, and that's obviously got a lot of fun. There's a lot of fuss and fanfare. It's great to see loved ones at the end of the race. I mean, as around the world, or if you've done the whole thing, it means a huge amount to both have finished the race, but by then you're probably getting pretty tired, and maybe even a bit sick of being at sea for a whole year, or nearly. But just I can't explain the emotional experience of having left somewhere 11 months previously and then racing back into the same waters to finish a circumnavigation. It's pretty spectacular, and lots of grown men I saw had a tear in their eye seeing family and friends after a long absence. So It's great fun. Leg 8, the finish is fantastic. The race itself is normally split into bite-sized chunks. It incorporates an ocean crossing, which of course is a big advantage. Those that have never crossed an ocean before, it's a big bucket list item to tick. It should be relatively enjoyable sailing on the basis that you are coming into early summer, although you are fairly north in terms of latitude too. And it should you should see your fair share of decent wave sizes and boat speeds. It's also the end of the race, so you know, if racing is close, it's going to be exciting racing with everybody absolutely throwing everything to the wind, really, to try and improve their final result. So those boats that haven't had a podium, if there's any boats that haven't had a podium by then, they're all going to be desperate to get on the podium. Those that have been on the podium consistently and are in a good position to win the race overall are going to be equally desperate to secure their position at the head of the fleet. So leg 8, for those reasons, is has lots of pros to it. One of the cons, I suppose, and there's very few really, but one of the cons to leg 8 is that if you are only doing leg 8 and you join as a legger, you're going to be joining your crewmates on a boat you haven't sailed on for quite a significant period of time. And if you're a strong sailor, then that's not going to be so much of a problem. But if you're a relatively newbie, then a disadvantage is going to be that you're joining a crew of, around the worlders by then will be very experienced, hardened sailors, used to the boat, used to how it all works, and they'll be working together and sailing the boat pretty much to a large extent on their own. So the downside, I suppose, to that is you're coming in as a newbie with the same experience level or less, because you've been off the boat for a while, that you had at the end of your level 4 training. And if you haven't kept on the water and kept your skills up, you're going to find it more challenging to get up to speed. A way around that, and something I did when I was skipper on the 13-14 race, was that I allocated people experienced around the worlders and experienced leggers that were doing multi-legs to mentor those newbies that were arriving for leg 8. The advantages to newbies, same as ever: new conversation, new excitement, new emotional energy, all of those things still. And in my experience on the race, on all the boats I was on, there was no delineation between round the worlders and leggers in terms of who was important in the team, although of course as the race continues, the round the worlders generally become more experienced and more skilled at all the different jobs on board. So you know, you're going to have to put up with that if you've just joined for the end of the race, but you will be, I'm sure, welcomed with open arms. And the big advantage is that you do get to sail across the finish line, which is obviously great fun. And you're also being mentored by experienced sailors by then, so you should vastly improve your sailing skills on the race if you're a non-sailor to start and have just completed the training element. And I think for that reason alone, it's worthwhile, because you're going to be on a boat which is being pushed hard and within the limits of its crew, and you're going to learn very quickly all the tips and tricks that have been learnt by others on your team during the circumnavigation. So ups and downs, yeah, relatively temperate climate, potentially warm or cold. There is an interesting start and finish line. Obviously you've got an exciting end to a race ahead of you, and you get to enjoy all of the glamour, if you like, and the excitement of the end of what is now a fairly significant worldwide international sporting event as one of the protagonists. So that's the reason it's called one of the glory legs, and for good reason. It's an ocean crossing. It's still very much a challenge. Very easy after some of the bigger legs in the Southern Ocean and the North Pacific for those round the worlders amongst the crew to start saying, oh well, it's just North Atlantic, we'll cross that. North Atlantic is still a big, open, potentially challenging, scary ocean, so you can't rest on your laurels, and as a legger you'll get a lot out of leg 8. So yeah, I hope that helps. In terms of kit requirements, etc., I would suggest you go to fierceturtle.co.uk to have a look through kit and how layering works, or listen to earlier podcasts. If you've got any questions or you want to add your own experiences, then please do so. You can do that either on the Anchor FM podcast app, which you can download to your smartphone, or alternatively, you can go to Fierce Turtle's YouTube channel, and if you go to the Captain's Vlog series playlist, there will be a comment section under there. Any affiliate links, that's me forgetting to turn my phone off, if you heard that ping. Any affiliate links, then please, if you have any interest in buying any of the bits and pieces that are in the affiliate links from Amazon or elsewhere, if you click on the link, I get a few pence as a little introduction commission, and it costs you no more. So thanks for all of that. I hope this has been of some use to you. The last in this series will be my comments on the pros and cons of being a round the world crew, and that will follow in the next episode. Thanks for listening.